So, quick one today. Welcome back. I just posted the other day a quick story in the blog about a crazy neurosurgeon guy who was talking about vision health in the most wildest of terms. And a quote of one of the endless amounts of amusing quotes that one could have pulled. I picked one where he says that lenses filter purple light, and he does say purple light, and that the lack of purple light causes your eye muscles to atrophy. And he does say eye muscles here, not anything more specific. There's a whole bunch of different kind of muscles in the eye, outside of the eyeball, that do different things, but he just says eye muscles. And that atrophy causes the globe, he calls it the globe, to to elongate. So he says glasses cut out purple light. The lack of purple light causes your eye muscles to atrophy, and because the eye muscles atrophied, you now have flat hair. Your eyeball, or whatever else the globe might mean, is elongating. And I posted this just to make the point that you need to be careful about complete nonsense and spotting complete nonsense. But apparently I didn't post a counter argument to this, because that's a very large part of what we talk about on the site, is how the intraocular muscles work and how focus works and why the eyeball elongates, and just tons and tons of science around it. So I thought the point was obvious, but a couple people on Facebook commented that I didn't counter argue. And first of all, I consider it's difficult to counter argue the kind of premises that are really far-fetched. Like, it's like the guy says the Sasquatch has 8 arms, right? Basically, counter argue that. But at the same time, it's kind of important to be able to do that, because for you to be able to tell, I wonder if there's wind noise. For you to be able to tell whether, sorry about the distraction. For you to be able to tell whether something is true or not, you need to be able to look at substantiating science. And in this case, I thought it was obvious, because we talk about the actual science, and I thought it was obvious what the guy's saying is crazy. But in the interest of this particular argument and these kinds of arguments on a large scale, let's look at how that works. So first of all, the guy is incredibly vague, right? Like, purple light, please. And I actually had to think about it for a moment. I realized that maybe he means UV light, right? Like, not in the visible part of the spectrum, and it's called UV light, not purple light. We're not 4 years old, but he calls it purple light. Lenses, clear glasses don't filter purple light. Like, none of that makes any sense. But maybe he meant UV light, which is already a huge red flag if you're gonna have to dig around and make assumptions what he actually meant, which isn't what he said. So even if you assume, okay, maybe he meant UV light. So he says UV light causes your eye muscles to atrophy. Another big red flag is there's a whole bunch of different muscles doing different things in the eye. Which are we talking about? You know, when you're making these kinds of scientific arguments, you want to be a little bit more specific than purple light and eye muscles. That just sounds sketchy, right? It's very difficult for you to substantiate something that A, the guy provides no scientific evidence for, and B, is incredibly vague about. So you can dig around and you can assume, okay, maybe he means UV light, and eye muscles is difficult. But first thing you want to do is go to Google Scholar, which has a bunch of clinical study searches as opposed to the regular Google, and start looking at muscle atrophy and UV light. Eye muscle atrophy, and that's just, the terms are too vague. Like, you're not going to get a whole bunch of good results. You're not going to anyways, because it's nonsense. But that's where you have to start, and you have to pick a couple of key arguments that people make that you wonder whether to trust, and look at either whether they have supporting science, and then take a close look at that, take a close look at the source, see if it's where it's published, see if it's peer reviewed. And I'm one to talk because we're already in a really fringe topic, and figure out if what the person says has any basis in science. And in this case, purple light is nonsense. If we say UV light doesn't cause eye muscles to atrophy. You know, it's one of those things where the Sasquatch has 8 arms. Like, how do you counter argue that when there's no science on it and he doesn't point out any science on it? What you can do is take a little bit of logic and look at, if that was true, then many of us would have atrophied eye muscles. And now, if you're thinking logically, you're going, okay, what would that do if my eye muscles were atrophied? But then you have to go, which freaking eye muscles, right? Extraocular are the ones that move your eye in the socket, and intraocular is the ciliary muscle that controls focus. We have to dig further because the guy is just leaving clues. He's not making a clear argument. So he says that because those muscles are atrophied, your eyeball, or whatever the globe is, we're gonna have to assume it's eyeball, elongates. Now, that is completely false, because there is no muscle around the eye that holds the eyeball in a round shape. There just isn't. There isn't a muscle that holds your eyeball round, that if that muscle atrophied, your eyeball would just elongate like an egg. There isn't. You do a 30-second search on Google about eye biology and you look at the muscles in the eye and what they do, you find that there is no such thing, right? It is complete and utter nonsense. But it takes a little bit of digging, because you read the phrase, and whether the guy is an idiot or whether he's really smart, so whether he did it on purpose or not, it's a very difficult argument to look at, because you can't easily substantiate it either way, because it's just nonsense. So, but the good clue is purple light. What is purple light? It's too vague. Like, if you're a scientist, if you're talking about something that is far-fetched and people don't know and they want to explore, you're gonna use the right term, right? Like, it's clearly not purple light. Glasses don't filter out purple light. Purple light nor UV causes muscle atrophy, and there's no muscle to be atrophied that will cause your eye to elongate. So, but it sounds pretty, right? That's the problem. It sounds pretty, and people like something that sounds pretty, and it's like, oh, we need the purple light, and glasses steal up purple light, and our soul, and it drives me nuts. And the problem with these kinds of things is, if you're gonna deal with a health-related topic and you're gonna take it seriously, and you're not just doing it for Facebook points or because you like chasing unicorns, you have to, unfortunately, at least gather enough evidence to figure out if the person who is talking to you is credible. And of course that's a stretch, and you have me, for example, who's making terrible YouTube videos, but I spend a whole lot of time trying to point to clinical science and trying to teach you how to fish, trying to show you how do you find this kind of stuff and what is the basis of the biology. We talk about all that stuff so that even when you take some of my ideas that are a little bit more out there, that they all relate back to things that you can quantify, either by trying it yourself or by looking at a large body of supporting science. So don't take something just because it sounds pretty and quote-worthy. Look, just take apart pieces of the statement and see what, if any of it, you can substantiate. That's really important. That's so critical. And like, in today's Facebook days where everybody posts these crazy things and conspiracy theories and everybody just clicks like without looking at, is this stuff based in any kind of science? And if the guy claimed that he was riding a unicorn pony, that would be one thing. But he claims to be a neurosurgeon, he claims to be an MD, and he claims that science is the foundation of what he talks about, and it isn't, right? And okay, so that might take you 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 2 hours to figure out, but it's worth it before you start buying into whatever the guy is selling. Everybody's selling something, and that's fine, but don't just because it says neurosurgeon MD and he writes these 10-page long things, don't just assume it's all true. Do me that favor, please. And I know it's tempting, and I know I've done it in my younger past, but substantiate these things. The way you become successful in life and in health and in just about anything is carefully choosing your friends, carefully choosing your mentors, carefully choosing who you listen to. Like, does that person have terrible hair, for instance? Anyway, that's it for this ramble. Be careful with this stuff out there, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.